Hey guys, this is Vishal Dandote, and in this video we will see what are the services in Angular and how we can use that in the Angular application. Before we start, let's see the definition of service and the uses of service. So, why service in Angular and what is the service in Angular? So, service is nothing but we can say it is the common function or the common business logic which we can share with the multiple components. So, whenever we need to share the data between e-relational component or the component which don't have any relationship between them, in that case we can use our service. So keep in mind, whenever we need to share the data between different type of component, in that case we can use our service. So it is the common business logic which we can reuse with the multiple components. And like how the data flow of Angular application and how the Angular data flow is working in the background. So like first data goes to component, after that from the UI, after that it will goes to the service, and after the service it will goes to the microservices or the API. So whenever we need to communicate between component and the microservices, or we can say API, in that case we need to use the services or the good mechanism to use service, because the calling the API or getting the data from server and sending something to server, that is not the unique code that can be reused. That is why we are using the service layer into the any application. We can say it may be Angular application or any other application. So again, keep in mind, whenever we have to share the data or the common business logic with the uh, different type of component, we can use our service. So let's see how we can create our service. So whenever we need to create the service, we can create that with the two ways. So first is using the Angular CLI or command line interface. So how can we do that? So we can simply go to our command line interface or the terminal, and here we can simply say ngg and yes. So it is mean by ng means Angular generate and yes means service, and here we can pass our service name. So whatever service name we need to add. But for initial starting, or we can say for the best practice, I will create the manual service in this I will create the manual service in this lecture. And you should also create a manual service, because it will help you to understand the data flow of Angular application, as well as you will uh, keep remembering like how we can create the service, and you will get exactly what is the service in Angular application. For that, let's create our first service in Angular application. So create the service, I will create one file. So here I will simply say common dot service dot ts. So we will use same naming convention or the same best practices which is provided by Angular. So whenever we are creating the service, we should add dot service word into the file naming convention. Whenever we need to create the service, we need to use the, or whenever we are creating the service, we need to import our injectable class from the Angular core library. And here, as I told you, whenever we need to work with the Angular core features like as a services component and the directive or the pipes, in that case we need to send some metadata to the TypeScript class. So after seeing that metadata, Angular will generate that particular type of uh, class. Let's say in this case, whenever we are passing the injectable, it means we are telling Angular that I need to create my class as a service in Angular application. So I will simply say export class, and here I will say common and service, and here it is the injectable. So it is the most important words, or we can say it is the most important topic in the Angular, like what is the dependency injection. So using the injectable, we can make our class as a dependency into the Angular application, and this class will provide the functionality to inject this class into the another class as a dependency injection. So it has feature which can be which we can use this class or this object as a dependency injection. So for that we can simply say provide in. So this provide in means we can so passing provide in and the value root, it means we are creating our singleton service. It means in the whole Angular application this service has only one instance. So that is meant by singleton service. So whenever we are creating the service, and as we discuss, this is nothing but the common business logic which we need to share with the multiple components. So for that, let's define one function, get static data, and from this function we will return our one array of JSON object. So for that I will go to my browser and I will search for the JSON placeholder. So this is nothing but the open source API, so where we can simply get our data. So I will take one array of JSON object and I will return that array of JSON object from this method. So what we have done here, so we have created our service using the injectable class or the injectable object, and after that we have simply created one function and returning our JSON object from this function. So what we need to do now, so whenever we need to use this service, we need to register this service into the app.module.ts file. It means, so whenever we need to bootstrap or whenever we need to use any features which we have created into the Angular application, that must be registered into the any of the module file. So that might be we have multiple modules. So in this case we don't have multiple modules, we have only one file module. So we are registering this service into the app.module.ts file. It means this is the root module, and whenever we are registering this service into the app.module.ts file, it means we have single instance of this service available in whole Angular application. So for that I will import that service in the app.module.ts file and dot common service, and I will import my class. So class is common service, and whenever we need to use the service, we need to pass that or we need to add that into the providers array. So it will create our dependency injection. So using the providers, we can provide our data to our components. So here I have added my service into the providers array, and after that we are ready to use our service. So whenever we need to use the service into the Angular components, we need to create one we can say reference or the instance of that service. So here I can simply say private, and we are creating the reference instance for that service. So common service, and saying common service. So as you can see, VS Code automatically import that VS Code have automatically import that service. And so I have created one we can say reference instance or the reference for that particular service. So using the constructor, we can create that. After that, what we need to do, we need to use that service. For using the service, so we can simply say ng on init. This is the lifecycle method in the Angular application, and for that we need to implement that method on init. Okay, so for this, in the ng on init method, what we will do, we can simply console out our service data. So let's say uh, common service dot, and you can see it automatically populate our actual method which we have defined into the our service class. So here you can simply say common service. If you run this code and go to your browser, so here is my application running. So I will inspect it, and you can see we have our data available into the app.component.ts file. Again, whenever we need to use this same service into the another component, so in my case, let's say I have my app component, sorry, first component, and whenever I need to use this service into the first component, what I will do, I will simply go to first component.ts file, and here I can simply create my constructor. And in the every component where we need to use that service, we need to make sure that we have created our reference instance into the constructor. So here we need to follow the same thing. So I will implement the ng on init. It is the lifecycle method. So on init, and I will simply say ng on init, and here I can simply console my method. So common service dot get service data, and as you can see, you will see you have this app component. So we are seeing this data, and after that, if we go to our first component, we should also able to see that data. So for that, what we need to do, we need to register, or we need to use our this first component selector into the app component.ts file, sorry, html file. So I will get this selector and add it to here as a html tag, and you can see now our service data is available into the both component. So in this way, we can create our service and share our data to the different type of components. So in this case, as you can see, we have just created our simple function. So which we can discuss, which we have discussed into the our definition. So service is nothing but the common business logic or the common function which we can reuse in our Angular application. So it means, so we have created our service and successfully use our um, static data with the different type of component. But as we discuss, this service is useful for calling our API, um, calling our API in the Angular application. So let's call our API with the help of service, and after that we will uh, get that data into the Angular application or the component, and we will bind that data with our HTML templates. So for that, so whenever we need to call our API into the Angular application, we need to use the HTTP client. And for the HTTP client, we need to import one particular module into the app.module.ts file. So I will go to app.module.ts file, and here I will simply say HTTP client and module, and from here I need to import this. So I will import this from import and from @angular slash common slash HTTP. So this is the library which will provide us to like which is providing us HTTP client module. So and this module allow us to communicate with the microservices or the APIs. So I will register this module into the inputs array, and after that we are ready to use our HTTP client class or the class or the function. So whenever we need to use the HTTP client, again we need to use the HTTP client as a dependency from the Angular slash common slash HTTP library, and after that we can simply say HTTP client. And as we discuss, whenever we need to use any class as a dependency into the Angular application, we need to create the reference instance or the instance of that particular class into the constructor function. So here I will simply create my instance for the HTTP client, and I will simply say private HTTP, and here I will simply say HTTP client, and we are ready to use our HTTP clients. So HTTP client has provided our HTTP client has provided us method like get, post, put, delete, and patch. So all the CRUD methods. So whenever we need to use the HTTP client, we can simply say let's create our one method. So get server data, and in this method, what we will do, we will refer to that HTTP method, HTTP instance, and as you can see, we can see all the methods which is provided by HTTP client. And in this case, I will get, I will use the get method for getting the data from the server, and I will go to my JSON placeholder API, and from this I will copy my URL, and you can simply pass that URL here. And here is most important concept what we need to discuss. So whenever we are calling our API, and this API result, or sometimes it might be we will get error, or sometimes we will get the result, and that we need to handle. So in the Angular application, for handling those kind of scenario or the asynchronous programming, we are using the observables. So for the observable, we will see what is the observable in Angular application, but let's import that observable before we discuss about that. So array.js, and from the array.js, I will simply say observable. So what is the observable in Angular application? So observable is nothing but the class or the object which will help us to handle the HTTP request or HTTP response, sorry, HTTP response or the HTTP errors as per the value. So observable are not, same like as a promises. So we will get any value in the future. So that might be error or that might be data. So using the observable, we can pass our data to the like as a publisher, and whenever we need to use that, we can subscribe that data. So from the service, with the help of observable, we are passing our data or we are publishing our data um, like here. So for publishing our data, what we need to do? We need to simply say return type of that particular function. So in this case, I am saying observable of any type. And here we need to write the return word. So we are ready to use our service. So what we have done here? So we have passed. So see, we have created our API call, but our data is here and we need to send that data to our component. And for sending purpose or sending this particular object that might be error or the data to our component, we need to publish that data. And whenever we need to publish that data, we need to use the observable class. And simply say observable, so it will return one observable. And whenever we are using, let's say I'm going to use this service into the first dot component dot or first component dot ts file or the first component in Angular. So here I will simply say in this file, as I have created one instance for my service, I can simply say this dot common service dot, and you can see I am able to access my get server data function. And this function, what this function will return? This function will return the observable. So for that, like whenever observable publish our data, whenever we need to use that, we can simply subscribe that data. And into the subscriber, we will able to, or subscriber will or sorry, observable return will return maybe resolve or the reject or the like fulfill or the reject. So in this case, we are might be getting error or the uh, data. So if we will get error, sorry, we will get data, then we will console.log response, we will console the response. And it will, if there is error, we will console it out. And we can simply say console.error, and here we can simply say error. So like, okay, so let me go to the browser and see. Yeah, and here you can see we are able to get our API data. We have successfully call our service or call our API using the HTTP client and get that data into the component using our custom service. So what we need to do now? So we need to bind that data with our component template. So for that, I can simply create response array, and this should be array of any type. I will simply say any, and here, so here I will use that array. So this dot equal to response. Uh, this should be an empty array before getting the value. Okay, so now I can simply go to my HTML code, and here, as we discuss the direct in Angular, what we need to do? We need to create one div, and here we can simply say ng for iterating that particular array of object. And here I can say item of array, and I will simply iterate or bind my name with our HTML template. So I can simply say item dot and name, and I will add one HR tag here. So we will see the extra line as a like as a border there. And if you go to our Angular application, we you are able to see our data. So we have successfully created our service and call the API using the HTTP client. I hope you understand. If you have any question or the doubt, you can add that in a video comment, and I will get back to you on a next video. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you like my video, please subscribe the channel and share with your friend. Thank you so much.